Hey there, thanks for tuning in to my little speech for the artist in the Dear Diary community. So, I am addressing both current artists and folks that want to be a part of what we do. My name is Litsa. I am the owner of Dear Diary Coffee. And yeah. Okay, so if you are listening to this, if this has been shared with you, you might have some interaction with Dear Diary already. Maybe you have been to a meetup at our shop, or you've had like a pop-up shop, or maybe you were part of Austin's studio tour last year or the year before, or you've been to an open mic or something like that. Regardless, everyone that has some kind of connection to Dear Diary only knows their little slice. And so I think for most people, we're just a coffee shop, and that's kind of where it ends. Like a coffee shop where, they can do things, but that's not unlike any other coffee shop. But my purpose of this presentation is to impress upon you that Dear Diary is a lot more than that, especially if you'll allow it to be. So one thing is, the fact that we are a physical space is a big deal. I don't know if you know this, but it is really hard to acquire a brick and mortar in Austin, Texas. Long are the days of keep Austin weird. Rents here are high. The cost of labor is high. Staying afloat is hard. And that is why we are the city of food trucks. Most people cannot afford to sustain a physical space where they're paying rent and taxes and all that stuff. It's tough. So the fact that I have one is a massive big deal. And maybe, like me, you've dreamed for a long time of opening a coffee shop where artists can hang out, creating a community space, something like that. And I will tell you, it's hard. But I've done it, and I want to share it with you. In fact, the community, my desire to share this is so strong that it is what has guided me, kept me going all throughout the arduous task of saving enough money to make this even happen. So I'm going to say we. This is our shop. The fact that Dear Diary exists is special, and it's also yours. And I hope by the end of this presentation you will understand why. The only way I know to really express what Dear Diary actually is to take you back to the beginning and share its origin story with you. I feel like if you knew what it is in my mind, then you could take advantage of that. If you saw Dear Diary as a tool, you could build something with it. So the early 2000s. I moved here to Austin in 2002 from West Central Texas. In my hometown, I was very isolated, very shy for a lot of different reasons, which is a whole other conversation. But I really didn't find myself until I moved to Austin. This is the place where I felt safe and included, and I found my family here. I was able to befriend other people through drawing, which is so essential to a shy person. And so it helped me come out of my shell. In those early days, I would spend every single Sunday at the Hideout Coffee Shop on Congress with a meetup called Austin Sketch Group. Now, this is before Facebook, this is before meetup.com, it's before LinkedIn, it's before everything. So now, getting out and meeting other people is important. But back then, it was the only way. So because that was such a big deal to me, like, finding people and finding opportunity and all that, it made me think. Those days in the Hideout Coffee Shop, those days are when the idea first came to me that I thought it would be so cool to own a coffee shop. And it came from a place of wanting this to last forever. The meetups where I was, that was my home. Every Sunday from 2 to 7, I was at home with family. Like, friends are the family you make. And so Dear Diary today is my living room. It's a place where I can welcome people into a space and keep all that goodness alive. And too, that dream became my happy place. Over the next several years, daydreaming about Dear Diary is how I would get through the hard times. Of course, it didn't have that name at the time, but opening a coffee shop where all these artists could come and I'd have amenities for them and we could do cool stuff, those dreams gave me a sense of hope. They gave me a sense of future, and they kept me going and they kept me focused. The biggest thing that Austin Sketch Group gave to me, and those that initial set of art friends I made, was A Scanner Darkly. I had the privilege to join the animation team of that film, and it was so cool. There were 55 animators on that film, scanimators, so to speak, and I was the youngest person on the team, so I did nothing but admire other people and learn through observation, and two, everyone inspired each other. So out of that crew, we got the folks that started OK Mountain, if you were here for that. And there was Minnow Mountain, which exists today, came out of that. And really, I should have called Dear Diary Coffee Mountain, I guess. But anyway, I wouldn't have known about any of those jobs or any of that sort of stuff if it wasn't for initially being part of Austin Sketch Group. And then I met more people. And then two, my idea for Dear Diary, that those hopes and dreams kind of evolved as I gained life experience through my 20s. So, for example, Chris Nicholas, aka Uncle Staple, he was part of Austin Sketch Group, and I got to be there and witness when he had the idea to start Staple Independent Media Expo. And I was part of the first few years of that and joined the live art after parties and all that stuff. And I wasn't a leader, I was a learner, but that definitely formed my ideas of what Dear Diary could be and what was possible. So after 10 years of that, I turned 30. I was like, oh, I'm never going to get married. And I was like, 30 is a big number. It's divisible by 10. I want to do something significant and with my life. So instead of some major life achievement like marriage, this is where my brain was at the time, not so much anymore, but I decided, hey, I'm going to challenge myself to do something big. I've done enough watching and learning and observing, and I want to see if I can do it too. So I came up with the idea to have a big group art show. I wanted it to be big, and I was inspired by a lot of group art shows that were happening at the time. Big Medium was fairly new. They were still on Bohm, so that there was Big Medium, there was Gallery Lombardi, OK Mountain, Art Palace, Pump Project. I was inspired by all of that activity, and I actually worked with Art Project and leased space from them. I formed an LLC for the very first time. I worked with TABC for the very first time, and I amassed this big old group art show. It was over 80 artists, and it included an outdoor vending with tents and all this stuff, which was pretty novel at the time. Now we have outdoor artist markets all the time, like every week, but at the time it was not so common. So that was really cool too. We got on TV, we were in the Chronicle, of course, and it was a blowout. Like, we had a line out, down the block. It was so cool and such a confidence booster. So that was my little test and my little learning project for business. But I still didn't have the money to start a coffee shop. So the other thing that kind of worked out, like, where did the money come from? Well, after A Scanner Darkly and freelancing and just doing little art gigs and things, I got into tech kind of accidentally. It was just part of freelancing. It's like, oh, some gigs wanted me to code stuff. Okay. And I think a lot of you can probably relate to that. I know a lot of folks in the art community are designers. So I did that for years and years and saved money that way. But the reason I was able to save money is because I continued to live like a starving artist. I always lived with other people. I always rented a room in a house with roommates, or I did buy a house of my own on the east side in 2008, but I didn't live alone, so I was able to aggressively pay it off. So, I mean, honestly, even today, if you want to save money, the best way to do that is to share your living expenses with other people, and I continue to do that to this day. So that was kind of like steady income that I could save and kind of predictable. And then I purchased a house from a friend of a friend in South Austin for $127,000, and with the help of my family, not in the form of like working on it, I was able to flip it. So my stepfather is super handy and my mom is super hardworking, and so they would come up to Austin and help like fix it up. And so we got it to a point where we could sell it. And so with the profit from that sale, I was able to buy 1212 Chacon Unit 103, this dinky little shell condition space in the middle of a condo building that basically has gentrification painted all over it, for better or for worse. That's what I could afford. And so here I am. Now, acquiring the space was a huge achievement, and I definitely wanted to own my own space because I had been talking to small business owners for a long time before I even got to this point, and learned from them that making the lease was one of the hardest things about keeping a business afloat. So fortunately, I acquired my own space, and if I hadn't, Dear Diary would not have made it through the pandemic. So that was a step, but it wasn't until I found a business partner that I was able to get Dear Diary over the finish line, because after I spent my money on acquiring the space, I had to take out more loans and get financial help from this business partner to finally get Dear Diary all built out and open and everything like that. We had the misfortune of opening April of 2020. So Dear Diary has never known a normal economy. If you think that we have, I don't think anyone is delusional enough to think that the economy is back to normal. It's terrible. We've had inflation and all this stuff, and everyone is feeling poorer now than they did during the pandemic. And I see it because retail, and also because I talk to other business owners. So it hasn't been easy, but here we are. We have this space, and maybe now more than ever, I have all the reason in the world to be extremely grateful for this. So this is what it looks like to make a small business in Austin happen. If you don't come from a rich family, this is the time and effort it takes to create a small, humble, albeit adorable retail space in Central Austin. And if you will remember, it's this community, Austin's art scene, you guys, that are the reason I kept focus all these years. Now that I have this space, I want to use it. I know it's small and it doesn't have a patio, and it could be a lot better, but it's a start. The last 16 years have been the prologue. If Dear Diary is going to write a story here in Austin, I want y'all to help me write it. I don't want to do this alone. It defeats the whole purpose. If you understand why I created this space, why I was motivated, you would know that I have this space because I want to share it. It represents community and stability to me. So hopefully my sincerity in that matter is clear now. And so you're probably wondering, or maybe not, but if Dear Diary is supposed to be a resource and community center and all this stuff for artists, are we a nonprofit? No. That doesn't mean we profit, though. To be honest, I didn't know how to form anything other than an LLC. I didn't know how to make Dear Diary a nonprofit, but I really think that we do suffer because our business formation doesn't match what we do. It frames us incorrectly to the community. People come to me all the time wanting me to donate to their nonprofits and their programs and things, which is fine, but I'm not in a position to ask for help. And truthfully, if you're going to have a community program, it needs to be supported by the community. It is enormously expensive. It is, as a coffee shop, plain and simple, that would be enough work as it is. The coffee shop just makes enough to sustain itself. It doesn't also make enough for all of these things I want to do. So if you're going to have a community program, you have to have community support. If you're not going to collapse, you need people under that program to support its weight. And so that's what I'm asking you for. I can't bear all of this on my own little shoulders. Now, I know that if Dear Diary disappeared, y'all be fine. There's a lot of programs in Austin. There's a lot of art clubs and meetups, and you have your host of coffee shops that you could hang out in. But I think one thing that I'm offering you that is unique and different is my motives. Basically, if you have an idea, I'm the only person you need to convince. I only get emotional payoff from this shop. It's not a huge moneymaker. I'm not a rich woman. So this whole thing is worth it to me if I see that if I'm executing the vision, if it's helping other people. I feel so good. I feel so much joy when the shop is alive, whenever all the seats are filled and people are drawing stuff. And I honestly get really enthusiastic for people that are drawing or making music or whatever. So that's what I want to do, and I want your help with that. So all that said, we have a lot of stuff coming up. 2024 is on the horizon, and really our kind of creative calendar begins and ends with Austin Studio Tour. That's basically Christmas for us. So this Austin Studio Tour, I've paid the $500. We're definitely in the catalog, but I don't know what we're going to do. It's a placeholder at the moment. So if you have ideas for how we can make the most of Austin Studio Tour, get the most traffic, or if you're more interested in the space itself, how can it serve you? I know our hours are stupid. We're only open from 7 to 2 during the week, and that's just because the cost of staffing. We don't get enough customers in. The coffee shop doesn't get enough customers in after 2 p.m. to pay a barista to be there. But that doesn't mean we can't use the space. So if you have ideas around that, what else? Oh, Little Gay Shop and Future Front are joining Dear Diary and Marcelli's studio on 12th and Chacon. And so we're going to have 4 creative businesses all in the same space. I see Art District in our future. So Are there ways that we could collaborate? Like, do y'all know those businesses really well? Just what ideas do you have? Is there anything else? Oh, the other thing too is our consignment artists are coming on right about a year. Last year, I got a bunch of new artists in for Austin Studio Tour. Their history with us began in November. So now we're kind of coming up to the point where I'd like to give other artists a turn. The artists that are performing really well, of course, I want to keep. Artists that are really engaged and involved and partner with me and help me out and co-own this with me, definitely want to keep them in. But I definitely also want to create space for other people to have a shot at this. It's an incredible resource. Last year, even though we had inflation and everyone was feeling poor and we saw our customer count go down and all these challenges, we still were able to write over $8,000 worth of checks for artists. So we generated income for artists, which is really important for me. I'm proud of that. And I think in future years, we could do even better. Why not? So what I'd like you to do is, at this point, open up your phone, open up your email app, and put a little placeholder in there for me. Email me at Litsa, Litsa, at deardiary.coffee, and make the subject be, let's talk about, and then you fill in the blank. Just one word is good enough. And that can be my bookmark, and I'll follow up with you to schedule a call or time to chit chat, because there's a lot of you, and I don't think we're going to get all of these ideas out all at once. Maybe if some of y'all have similar ideas, we can talk about them together. Anyway, I'll put it on me to follow up with you. Okay, well, my webcam pooped out, so I am back just to say bye and thank you so much for listening to all of this.